Okay, we are looking at section 9B here. Just to kind of summarize the big picture of chapter 9. So first we did section 9A, and in 9A we were looking at hypothesis testing, and we were looking at problems specifically involving z-test and t-test. Now, how do we identify those in 9A? Well, in that section we were talking about problems that you were given an average and or a standard deviation. Okay, so I think of those as average and standard deviation problems. And to decide between a z-test and a t-test in section 9A, a z-test you use if the standard deviation that you're given is for all population data, not just a sample, but all population data. If you were given a standard deviation for a sample, then you would be using a t-test. Okay, so that was in section 9A, and we had a 5-step process for all of those problems. In step 1, you had to pick your hypotheses, your H0, H1, you had to state those with the proper symbols. In step 2, you had to actually pick your test. In that section, we only had z-test and t-test, but in total, we'll have 6 different tests. And then once you do the test, you need to write down the p-value and then the z or the t-test statistic. In step 3, you do the p-value method or the critical region, drawing that picture, whichever order you want to do it in. And then in step 4, you kind of do the other one. And then in step 5, you write the conclusion. And the biggest thing to remember is that your p-value method and your critical region method should always give you the same answer. Okay, it's 2 different ways of doing the same thing. So if you're doing those 2 methods and you're getting 2 different answers, you made a mistake. Okay, it wasn't that something was calculated wrong, it was that you made a mistake. They have to match. Okay, so that was section 9A. Now we're looking at section 9B. Much of chapter or section 9B is identical to 9A. Okay, the 5 steps are the same. The tables that you use are the same. Everything's very similar. The one thing that's different is the type of information that you're given. Okay, in this section, we're not going to be given averages. We're not going to be given standard deviations. We're going to be given percents. These are going to be proportion problems. Okay, so they're going to give you a percent in terms of what we used to think was the answer. Then they're going to give you some sample data of, we used to think the answer was 20%, but we did a study and we found out of 364 people, we found 58 of them did whatever the context of the problem was. And then what can be concluded. Okay, so just looking at a couple of these problems. They give you the percent that we used to think, and then they give you a sample number out of a total. Question 2, they give you a percent that we used to think, and then a sample where they give you a number out of a total. Another example, a percent that we used to think, and then they give you a number out of the total for a sample. Okay, so these start to look very, very familiar. Okay, so as soon as you see that it's not an average or a standard deviation problem, instead, you need to identify it as a proportion problem. Okay, now I tend to think calculator. So when I see it's a proportion problem where they're only talking about one sample, I right away think of a one prop z-test. Okay, now in step A here, we need to figure out in the computer language what they're talking about. Okay, so they're saying z-test for a proportion or t-test for a mean. For whatever reason, they're giving those 2 options. We know this is a proportion problem. Okay, so that would be our answer there. They also want you to state the hypotheses, H0 and H1. In section 9A, the previous section, we were doing average problems. Okay, in average problems, the hypotheses, the symbol that you would use in these was that mu symbol. Okay, that U with the long curve in the front. That's if it was an average problem in 9A. In 9B here, if it's a proportion problem, you should be using a P. So it's just a slight notation change. Okay. The null hypothesis always has an equal sign, always. Okay. And then the number that you put in the hypotheses is always the percent that you used to believe. You know, we used to believe that 20% of college students volunteer their time. Then we took a sample. We want to see if it supports this former belief. And in our sample, we had 58 out of 364 of them doing volunteer work. Okay, so whatever number is given as kind of what we used to believe, that's what you're going to put in the hypotheses. So that 20% is going to go in as a decimal, and it will be the same number always. In all hypothesis testing, you should have the same number in both of the hypotheses. Okay, now for the H1, the alternate hypothesis, it's always going to be less than, greater than, or not equal to. So you have to pick one of those three guys. Okay. The less than is going to be concluded by words, if you see, you know, less than, fewer than, decrease, things that mean you're kind of getting smaller. The greater than is going to be prompted by phrases like an increase, greater than, more than, things like that. And the not equal to, usually they use the phrase is different. They may say is different in either direction. Okay, it's a not equal to is kind of a less than and a greater than. It's kind of both of them together. So in this problem, you want to look at the question. The question will help you figure out what to put in this H1. So they say, is the percentage of college students who are volunteers different for students receiving financial aid? Okay, this right here is the key. Okay, it doesn't say, is the percentage more than? It doesn't say, is the percentage less than? It says, is the percentage different? Different means it could be less than or it could be greater than. Okay, so in this case, we would put a not equal to. So far, so good? Okay, so we decided that this was a one prop z-test. That's kind of what this means up here. So if we go on the calculator, we are going to pull up the one prop z-test. Okay, P0, that's like the number that came from your null hypothesis. Okay, so in this case, that would be a 0.2. Let me move this up here. And then the x is how many out of a total of whatever your n is. So we had 58 out of a total of 364. So that's kind of our sample data. Then here you need to select whichever inequality you used in your H1. In this case, we used a not equal to, so just make sure that's highlighted. And then we want to calculate. Any problems so far? Okay, this should seem fairly familiar if you've done 9A. Okay, so the test statistic will always be either the Z or the T, depending on which kind of test you used. So since we used a one prop Z test, we would be using a Z here. So it's kind of in the name of the test that you chose. And then we type in the Z score right there. So that's just literally from the calculator. And it said to go to 3 decimal places, so be careful with your rounding. The p-value from the calculator, they say to 4 decimal places. So I'm getting that from right here. Okay. The p-hat, all that is, you don't need to enter that here, but the p-hat is just the proportion of your sample. So they did 58 divided by 364. That's where this number's coming from, but we don't really need it. All right, so now they're doing the methods of trying to figure out what the answer is. So they're saying your p-value, we're going to compare it to alpha. So alpha, let's look back on the problem, is 0.01. Okay, I always think small means reject. Small means reject. That's what I try to keep in mind. Okay, the p-value is a probability. In this case, it's about a 5%. That is like calculating the odds that this is true and our sample happened. What are the odds that this whole situation happened? Okay, So the larger this is, the more believable it is, okay? The smaller that it is, the more skeptical we become. And if it's so small that we're like, really? I mean, that's not very plausible, then we reject the whole idea. So I always keep in mind, small means reject. Now, how small is small? That's what the alpha is talking about. In this case, the alpha was 1%, 0.01. So they're saying anything less than a 1% is not believable, and then we reject the idea, okay? So since our p-value is 0.0524, it is larger than alpha. It's larger. Well, if it's larger, we're saying, okay, we'll believe that, okay? And if we believe this whole situation, we failed to reject. There's no reason to be skeptical about it. So if our p-value is large, we fail to reject. If our p-value is less than, then we reject. So I always just keep in mind, small means reject. Small means reject, which we do not do in this case because our p-value is large. And then the final step is the conclusion. And since we fail to reject the null, I kind of go back up here. If we fail to reject it, we fail to throw it away. That means we are going to keep and believe this initial idea here. We're failing to throw it away. So we believe that P is 20%. There's no reason to reject that idea, okay? Any issues so far? Okay, so we want to say, looking at these three options, the data suggests that the population proportion is not different than 20%. So it's one of these guys up here at a 1% level of significance. So there is insufficient evidence to conclude that the percentage of financial aid recipients is different than 20%. Okay, so we're looking at this one here. If you were writing this, on the worksheet, there are different phrases, different wordings that you could use, but that's what we got to use for this one. Okay, so that's an example of the type of problem you would see in 9B. Again, very, very similar to what you saw in 9A. The main difference here is that you are doing a z-test on proportions. You'll never do a t-test on proportions. Proportions are always a z-test, and you will be using a p symbol here and not the mu. Okay, other than that, it's very, very similar. Okay, so good luck. Hope that helps out.